He was left on the steppe with nothing. No army, no throne, no city, not even enough food to keep his family alive. His enemies thought he would disappear into the grasslands like so many forgotten boys before him. They were wrong. That starving child would become Genghis Khan. He would unite tribes that had spent generations killing each other. He would break kingdoms older and richer than anything he had ever seen. Cities would open their gates in terror. Kings would run from the sound of Mongol horses. And from China to Central Asia, the world would learn a brutal lesson. The boy they abandoned did not die. He returned with an empire behind him. Before he was Genghis Khan, he was Temujin. He was born on the Mongolian steppe, probably around 1162, into a world where survival was never guaranteed. The steppe was beautiful, but it was not gentle. Wind cut across the grasslands. Winter could turn the earth into iron. Families depended on horses, sheep, loyalty, and luck. Tribes made alliances, broke them, raided each other, and remembered old blood feuds like sacred stories. Temujin's father, Yasuge, was a respected warrior and clan leader. For a short time, that gave the boy protection. Then protection vanished. According to Mongol tradition, Yasuge was poisoned by enemies, often identified as Tatars. After his death, Temujin's clan abandoned his mother, Holun, and her children. They took the followers, the animals, and the safety. They left the family to starve. That was Temujin's first lesson. In his world, blood did not always protect you. Power did. Holun kept her children alive by gathering roots, fishing, and refusing to surrender. Temujin learned early that survival was work, not fate, but hunger also made the family violent. Mongol sources say Temujin killed his half-brother Bektar after a dispute over food and authority. The story is harsh, and it may be shaped by legend, but its meaning is clear. Temujin grew up in a house where childhood ended quickly. Later, rival tribes captured him. They locked a wooden collar around his neck and treated him like a prisoner who would never matter. But Temujin escaped. Some traditions say a family secretly helped him flee. Whether every detail is certain or not, the escape became part of the legend. The abandoned boy had survived hunger. He had survived captivity. Now he began to understand something dangerous. If the world would not give him security, he would have to take it. Temujin married Borte, the woman promised to him in youth. For a moment, it looked like his life might become stable. Then the Merkid came. They raided his camp and abducted Borte. To Temujin, it was more than a personal wound. It was proof that weakness invited humiliation. He could not rescue her alone, so he did what great steppe leaders had always done. He made alliances. He turned to Togrul, a powerful ruler who had once been close to his father. He also turned to Jamuka, his sworn friend and blood brother. Together they attacked the Merkid and brought Borte back. But the rescue changed Temujin. He had seen what loyalty could do. He had also seen how quickly a family could be taken when enemies smelled weakness. From that moment on, Temujin did not only want survival. He wanted a power no raider could challenge. Temujin and Jamuka were once close enough to call each other brothers. But the steppe rarely allowed two rising men to share the same sky. Jamuka represented the old aristocratic order, where noble birth mattered and common warriors knew their place. Temujin built something different. He rewarded ability. He promoted loyal men even if they came from low status. He gathered followers by offering more than bloodline. He offered belonging, plunder, protection, and a future. That made him dangerous. The conflict with Jamuka became a war for the soul of the steppe. Some followed tradition, others followed Temujin. Battles came, betrayals came, old allies shifted like smoke in the wind. In the end, Jamuka lost. Mongol tradition says he asked for an honorable death without bloodshed. Temujin had defeated his blood brother, but the victory gave him what hunger had once denied him: authority. In 1206, the Mongol leaders gathered at a great Kurultai. There, Temujin received the title Genghis Khan. The exact meaning is debated, but the moment was not. A new power had been born. He reorganized the Mongols into a war machine. Families and tribes were broken into units of tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. Old loyalties were weakened. Loyalty to the Khan became supreme. His armies moved with terrifying speed. They could ride for days, communicate across distance, retreat to lure enemies out, then return like a storm. He used spies. He used scouts. He used fear as carefully as he used arrows. He also understood information. Messengers moved between commanders. Signals carried orders across distance. Scouts watched rivers, passes, cities, and camps before the main army arrived. His enemies often believed they were facing a wild flood from the steppe. In reality, they were facing a system. Some later traditions speak of a legal code called the Yasa. Its exact form is uncertain, but what is clear is that Genghis demanded discipline. The steppe had produced many raiders. He was building something colder, an empire. Once the tribes were united, the violence turned outward. Genghis Khan attacked the Tangut kingdom of western Xia. Then he turned toward the Jin dynasty in northern China. The Mongols were not supposed to defeat great settled states with walls, cities, officials, and ancient wealth. But they learned. They adapted. They used captured engineers, siege weapons, and the knowledge of enemies who had surrendered. The city of Zhongdu, near modern Beijing, eventually fell to the Mongol storm. To the settled world, the Mongols looked like chaos. But they were not chaos. They were discipline riding at impossible speed. They struck where enemies were weak. They divided rivals. They punished resistance so brutally that the next city would think carefully before closing its gates. By then, Genghis Khan was no longer only a steppe ruler. He had become a force that kingdoms had to calculate, fear, and obey. But his most terrible campaign was still ahead. To the west stood the Khwarezmian Empire, wealthy, proud, and stretched across Central Asia and Persia. At first, Genghis Khan sought trade. Then a Mongol caravan was seized at Otrar. Its merchants were accused of spying and killed. Genghis sent envoys demanding justice. The Khwarezmian ruler, Shah Muhammad II, answered with insult and violence. Some envoys were killed. Others were humiliated and sent back. For Genghis Khan, this was not only diplomacy. It was a challenge before the world. He had built his power on the idea that loyalty was rewarded and defiance was punished. If a ruler could murder his envoys and survive, the fear around the Mongol name would weaken. So Genghis Khan came west. Not as a raider, as judgment. The Khwarezmian Empire was large, but it was divided by fear, pride, and poor coordination. The Mongols moved faster than their enemies could understand. Bukhara fell. Samarkand fell. Urgench was destroyed after desperate resistance. Merv and Nishapur became names remembered with horror, though medieval casualty numbers are often exaggerated by sources. What is certain is terrible enough. The Mongol campaign shattered cities, armies, and confidence across Central Asia. Shah Muhammad fled instead of standing as the great ruler his empire needed. The further he ran, the larger Genghis Khan became in the imagination of his enemies. Genghis Khan did not only win battles, he attacked the mind of his enemies. If a city surrendered early, it might survive under Mongol rule. If it resisted, the punishment could become a warning written in ash. This was the empire he built from blood. Not blood for chaos, blood as policy, blood as memory, blood as a message to the next gatekeeper watching dust rise on the horizon. Behind the victories, a human problem remained. Empires must outlive the men who create them. Genghis had sons, generals, and commanders of extraordinary ability. Yochi, Chagatai, Ogadai, and Tolui stood near the future, but not without tension. Questions about Yochi's birth, linked to Borte's abduction by the Merkid, created old wounds inside the royal family. Genghis understood war better than almost anyone alive, but even he could not remove every shadow from succession. He chose Ogadai as heir, a decision meant to keep the empire together. Still, the question remained: could a world built by one will survive when that will was gone? The Khan had made tribes obey, he had made cities burn, he had made kings kneel, but death was the one enemy that did not negotiate. In 1227, during the campaign against Western Sia, Genghis Khan died. The cause remains uncertain. Some stories speak of illness, others of injury after a fall from a horse. Later legends added darker and stranger explanations. History does not give us a clean, final scene. That is part of the power of his ending. The man who made half the world tremble vanished into mystery. His burial place was hidden, and despite centuries of searching, it has never been confirmed. After his death, the empire did not collapse. It expanded. His successors carried Mongol power into Russia, the Middle East, China, and Europe. The orphan of the steppe had created a machine larger than himself, but the cost was carved into cities, families, and memories. Genghis Khan was a survivor, a unifier, a military genius, a destroyer. He was not born with an empire. He built one from fear, loyalty, discipline, and blood. And when he was gone, the hooves kept moving.